aircraft. Millions of fish are wasted every year, caught unnecessarily and thrown back dead. Millions of other creatures, including dolphins, are accidentally killed in fishing nets or hooks. Then there's drilling for oil and gas. Almost a third of the world's oil and gas comes from under the sea. So testing, drilling, and oil spills all take their toll on ocean wildlife. Then there's climate change. I don't know if you have heard about climate change.
Yes. We have heard about, and I am working. I am also with the Climate Change Action Day.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's really brilliant that we're talking about polar bears, because we're talking about adaptation and learning how to live there.
Yeah.
So sea temperatures are rising, melting the Arctic ice, and it impacts the coral reefs around Australia and in other places of the world and affecting species. It's also harming sea creatures like krill, which are vital to the marine food, affecting fish, penguins, seals, and whales. And then there's plastic, and I'm sure you have that problem where you are as well as we have here. 8 million tons.
Yes, we too have long sea coast in India. So we do have a lot of problem with this plastic. In our rural area, we do have the plastic. Our staying cattle can eat the threads of plastic, and they get a lot of plastic in their stomach.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. Yeah. So 8 million tons of plastic end up in our oceans every year. So we must all do the best we can to preserve and not use so much plastic. So let's get on to the polar bears. So what you can do to help WWF, you can produce a written news report, or you can write it, or you can film it on your iPad, or you can talk about it to your friends at school and your family and other friends. And so what you need to do is basically spread the word.
Yeah.
So the Arctic, that's where the polar bears live. They hunt and live generally alone, but they can sometimes be quite social. They mainly eat seals, and with their remarkable sense of smell, they can detect a seal a meter underneath the ice, and it can also smell a seal a kilometer away out in the distance.
Wow.
Yeah,
what a sense.
Yeah, so the Arctic is warming about twice as fast as the global average, causing the ice that polar bears depend on to melt away. Loss of sea ice also threatens the bears' main prey, which are seals, which need the ice to raise their young. So the Arctic is crucial for a lot of reasons, not just because it's home to the polar bear and 4 million people who live there, but it also helps to keep our world's climate in balance. Yeah, that's how it sounds. Oh, you missed it. Where we normally work at the Living Planet Center, where we run workshops for children like you and teachers like you, we got the children to help us make a frieze. And you can see this is a part of our wall in the Living Planet Center when we're talking about the penguins and polar bears. And you can see above the polar bear, there's a big walrus. It's not obviously always that color. It's normally dark gray, but we thought it would be fun to be red with white dots. The polar bear doesn't normally eat a walrus because it's too big, and it's got these huge tusks that it uses to lift itself up onto the ice. A polar bear may eat a walrus if it's dead, not if it's alive. Above the polar bear, you can also see the Arctic hare, which is very common in the Arctic. It's got very small ears and a very small tail, so it doesn't lose so much heat. It's not like, say, with elephants who've got huge ears, so they can release a lot of heat from their body that way. Up in the right-hand corner, it hasn't been colored in, there's the Arctic tern, and it flies all the way from the North Pole down to the South Pole and back again every year following the sun. So it's the animal that flies the longest distance, or the bird that flies the longest distance of all birds in the world.
Wow.
So unlike the Arctic, where the ocean freezes over, the Antarctic is a frozen continent. There are 18 different species of penguin, but only 2 live permanently in the Antarctic. That's the Adelie and the emperor penguin. They might look a bit clumsy on land, but penguins are brilliant swimmers. And penguins
Wow.
are a
Yes.
vital part of the Antarctic food chain. They eat creatures like krill, squid, and small fish, and are a source of food for predators like leopard seals and killer whales. By protecting penguins, we are helping them after their ocean environment, which is good for all the wildlife that depends on it. Let's take a look at that. So where do the polar bears live? There's an awful lot of disturbance in the sound. Can you hear that too? There's a lot of disturbance.
Yeah. I think you have a cup.
I have a what? I have a cough,
Cup.
yes.
Yeah.
But I can hear disturbance in the, okay. So let's take a look at the world map. So where do the polar bears live? They live in the Arctic, in the north, an ocean that's covered with thick ice and bordered by treeless frozen lands, including Alaska, Canada, Greenland, Norway, and Russia. And where do the penguins live? In the southern hemisphere, in Antarctica, in the far south, is a vast frozen continent surrounded by ocean. So you can see here where they are. So do you think that penguins and polar bears could ever meet in the wild? Well, I can't hear you and I can't see you, but I can tell you there is no way they could meet in the wild
Yeah,
because,
yeah. I can. We can hear you properly.
yeah, so they are, the polar bears are in the Arctic and the penguins are in the Antarctic. So there's no way they can ever meet, thankfully. So let's think about how the polar bear catches its prey. So to catch his favorite food, or she is a mummy polar bear. She's sitting there with her 2 cubs. And what do we say that the polar bear eats? It eats seals. So you may have heard about food chain. Have you heard about a food chain? What the food chain is? Maybe you have. I'll explain what it is. So who eats what? So we start in the water with something called Arctic algae, which is a microscopic organism that is eaten by small fish. And the small fish are eaten by large Arctic cod, for instance, and other large fish. And who eats the large Arctic cod? That's the seal. And who is it? What did you say? Who eats the seal? That's the polar bear. So this is called a food chain. We have got food chains with us human beings as well. But
Yeah.
in this case, if one of these animals becomes extinct, all the other animals will become, they will become threatened as well, and there will be a big imbalance in their numbers.
Can
Now,
I can I explain it? Can I explain it to my students?
of course you may, please
Yeah.
do.
Will you please return to the slide?
Shall I go back to the slide?
Yes, back slide. Okay, मुलांना हे बघा, this is the food chain of the polar bears. This is the हे ध्रुवीय प्रदेशात राहणारे, थंड प्रदेशात राहणारे जे काही प्राणी आहे पोलर बियर, याची ही फूड चेन आहे बघा. पहिल्यांदा जी अल्गी असते, अल्गी म्हणजे जे मायक्रोस्कोप खाली दिसतात ते कोण खातं? स्मॉल फिश खातं. आणि स्मॉल फिशला लार्ज फिश खातात. लार्ज फिशला सील खातो, हा सुद्धा फिशच आहे. हा पोलर रिजन म्हणजे मग आपलं उत्तर ध्रुव आणि दक्षिण ध्रुवावर सापडतो आणि याला खाणारा जो आहे तो पोलर बियर आहे. तर अशा प्रकारची ही फूड चेन आहे. दिस इज द फूड चेन. ओके, यू कॅन कंटिन्यू.
Do you think, are the children having problems understanding me?
No, but I am detailing them in my language.
I can send you this slide if you want to. I can
Yes,
send that
yes,
to you. I
yes,
can
yes,
email
yes.
you that if
No
you're
problem.
interested.
No problem. Yeah,
Okay, I'm now going to show you a little film which is
yeah.
about a real WWF explorer in the Arctic up North Norway. Up
Okay.
there, the temperatures change a lot. They are either they go down to minus 60 degrees Celsius, or they can be over 30 degrees hot as well. So the ice is shrinking fast. So I'm going to show you this.
Okay.
Can you hear the sound?
Yes, yes. We can hear. We can hear. मुलांना अंटार्क्टिका खंड आहे हा बघा पूर्ण बर्फाच्छादित.
Here you see a lot of sea ice drifting, and this is where all life revolves around in the Arctic. The sea ice is getting thinner and it's breaking up much quicker in the season. The polar bears have to go onto this ice to hunt in the spring. With less and less sea ice and the earlier breakup of sea ice in the season, polar bears are getting more and more difficulties to find prey on the ice. The future of the polar bear is not looking very, very bright.
What we see with the changing climate is that polar bears stay on land more and more. Certainly, they're being seen more often in communities. They get attracted by human settlements, garbage, drying meat, or other food laying around. The bears are really hungry sometimes when they are not able to forage on the sea ice, and in other occasions, they can be just curious because that's their nature. They can come really close to people, destroy their cabins, or kill dogs even. And sometimes this can also be a threat to people, and in turn to polar bears when people need to defend themselves. It's really important that industry, tour operators, tourists, and local communities have guidelines and information on how to handle these kind of problems, or how they can even avoid these problems.
So you can see that we are working very hard to make sure that people and animals can live together.
Yeah.
It was funny because I did this presentation to a school in Canada where the teacher was saying that she had actually seen a polar bear in their village. It was sort of like first hand that you could say, I've seen a polar bear. We don't have polar bears here, only in the zoo.
Yeah. Right.
So Arctic wildlife has evolved over thousands of years to cope with polar environments, but conditions change faster than most adapt to.